Welcome back. Today we are diving into some of the most chilling paranormal experiences shared by users on Reddit. These are personal accounts from people who claim to have lived through something they still cannot explain to this day. If you are new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button because every week we bring you the kind of stories that will make you question everything you thought you knew about the world around you. Now let us get into it. I have had paranormal experiences my entire life, and I have some questions for those who get it. I've been having paranormal experiences my entire life, for as far back as I can remember. Sometimes it scares me senseless. Sometimes it doesn't faze me too much. I'll tell you two stories before I ask my questions for those of you who are like I am. First was actually my very first paranormal experience. I don't know exactly how old I was, but I couldn't have been more than a year or so because I still had my pacifier. Growing up, I was with my aunt a lot. My mom was always busy with work, so if I wasn't with her, I was always with my aunt. When I would stay the night, she would set up my crib in the guest room, right across the hall from her room. I remember one night being awoken. I sat up and looked for my pacifier, found it, and popped it back into my mouth. Then, I just happened to glance toward the door, which she always left cracked. And slowly peeking into the room was a dark figure. I remember feeling so scared I couldn't make a sound for a couple seconds. I must have eventually, because soon the figure was gone and my aunt was there trying to comfort me. The next morning, my aunt noticed that I had almost bitten through my pacifier. I asked her a couple years ago just out of curiosity if she remembered that and if there was anyone in the house besides us that I could have just mistaken for a ghost. She said not that she remembered, but that something had definitely spooked me. Probably a nightmare? Yeah, I think not. Now I've had several since then. And like I said, sometimes they absolutely scare the living daylights out of me. Other times it doesn't bother me much. Sometimes it's just seeing somebody for a flash of a second that I could just tell wasn't something that other people could see. Other times it's just unsettling feelings in very specific areas. But the scaredest I've ever been in a paranormal situation happened not too long ago. It was late evening time, the sun had just set, and me and my family were at the hospital because a family friend had just had a baby. My mom realized that she'd left the gift in the car and I offered to go get it, which was my first mistake because I've had several times where I've felt very on edge in hospitals. I headed out to the parking garage, and the second I stepped in, I felt that feeling I always get during my not-so-pleasant encounters. I've read that people have different feelings that happen when they encounter bad ghosts or spirits or whatever you want to call it. In my situation, I always feel short of breath and like I'm about to puke. I remember the hair on the back of my neck immediately stood straight up, and I had the unsettling feeling that I wasn't alone. I booked it to our car, grabbed the gift, and headed back toward the elevator. I kept repeating to myself, "It's in your head, it's in your head," and that's where it took a turn. Suddenly, as if someone has leaned just inches from my ear, I heard a whisper, "It's not in your head." I immediately spun around, ready to fight like my life depended on it. Nothing was there, but that nausea feeling got extremely strong, and I ran back to the elevator. The second I was around other people, I felt better. But for weeks after, anytime I was alone, I had that horrible feeling. And I could go on and on and on with more stories. During a school lock-in for a fundraiser, I saw a boy who'd died in a car accident the year earlier standing in the hall. I smelled my late grandmother's perfume in the middle of the Rocky Mountains while exploring behind our cabin. I've heard things call my name. Hell, I saw the Hat Man in our backyard one night when I was home alone. I almost pissed myself with that one. So, for those of you who understand these experiences, I have some questions for you. What might make me someone that these experiences happen to? I'm a pretty ordinary person, and I wonder if there's something specific that ghosts/entities or whatever these experiences are look for. When a bad experience happens, should I acknowledge that I know they're there or just completely ignore it? I've read about people similar to me who speak about the veil. What is the veil? Is there anything I can do or wear to protect myself in situations like this? Good or bad? How do I truly know the difference between something that's gonna hurt me or something that isn't? And what are ways that these things could hurt me? That way I know to be prepared. I could really use some help with these. I don't want to live the rest of my life in fear of these experiences. If anyone has advice, please share. My husband and I drove through Mississippi, and I think we fell through some kind of vortex. My husband and I are newlyweds. We went to Florida for visit family and drove back north Friday afternoon/evening towards our home in northwest Missouri. To clarify, we were driving towards Tunica for the night to break up the 17-hour drive and get some sleep at a fun hotel. Somewhere around Jackson is where things started to get weird. Our GPS took us on a shortcut off the highway. As the sun was setting, we went through a town called Vaden. This was maybe 7:30 or 8-ish. I remember telling my husband the town had a haunted vibe, or just some bad energy, and he agreed. We kept driving as the sun went down and things got very rural. Please understand my husband and I are from rural Missouri and have lived across the country in some spooky places, including Atchison, KS, if you believe in the Devil's Portal or whatever. We are very used to being on a dark stretch of road at night. This was different than anywhere we've ever been. It felt like we were constantly turning in circles. For about 2 hours we were driving, and the gas gauge on our F25, didn't move. Like at all. Our truck is brand new and gets moderate gas mileage at best. We stayed at 3/4 of a tank exactly for hours. Typically, we stop on a trip every 2.5 hours. Now, the power of suggestion. We kept talking about how this didn't feel right. Every few hundred yards, we would see houses, but none of them had any lights on. My husband said, "That's strange. It almost seems like the highway is abandoned. More lights should be on at 8 p.m. Next house we pass, every light on. This happened multiple times. We would say we hadn't seen something in a minute, and that thing would appear. We barely saw any other cars, but the 2 times we did, we saw a string of 4 cars, exactly the same make and model, driving in perfect proportion to one another. Some kind of white SUV. Okay, maybe a coincidence? It happened again. Like a glitch just a few miles apart. We saw another car with its hazards on. The hazards turned off immediately after we passed them. My husband only saw a couple cars in the rearview mirror, but one followed us for a few miles. My husband described seeing it as a truck with LED lights one moment, and a sedan with amber lights the next. Then, back to being a truck with LED. This was all in the span of maybe 10 minutes, with no outlet for someone to turn off and get on again. At one point in the trip, we drove through a small town before getting back en route. This was maybe another hour in at 9 p.m. We saw no people. Cars were moving and lights were on, but no one was outside. We didn't see anyone in fast food restaurants or out in parking lots. We thought nothing of it at the moment, but looking back, isn't that strange? There were also no animals, just a few bats. Being from a rural area, we keep an eye out for deer, raccoons, armadillos, or other critters when driving at night. We only saw one deer at dusk, and it wasn't moving at all. It seemed frozen. It was looking at us, but its ears didn't twitch. It don't run away, it just stood perfectly still. Its head was also really small, but maybe that's just the deer in Mississippi. Speaking of animals, we travel with our lapdog. He's a senior pup, and he's ridden on my lap all over the country. He couldn't seem to settle down on these back roads. He whined and shifted way more than usual. I think the biggest thing for me was the chills I had the whole trip. Like tingling instinct type chills. Time didn't seem like it was passing normally. We felt like we were in danger. As soon as we got back on the interstate, everything seemed normal again. Animals, people, other cars, the gauges in the truck, my uneasy feeling, all back to normal. Lights were on in businesses. People were outside. My husband, who is normally very unshaken, returned to his normal self. All of my texts came in at once. My mom texted me about 2 hours before when the weirdness started that she had a sinking feeling about me, and whatever I was doing, I needed to be safe. I called her and said for the last 2 hours she had a mother's instinct that something was just very wrong. I want to end by saying my husband and I are very practical people. He is in the trades, and I am an educator and caretaker. We both have traveled back roads of the country in all weather at all times, completely fine, sometimes a little creeped out by the darkness, but fine. Our truck is also almost brand new and works well on long trips. We have taken it on a road trip through another rural area recently in Kansas, and all the gauges worked. As a science teacher, I know the behaviors of flora and fauna well. While we are devout Christians, we are scientists and take a very level-headed approach to the supernatural. I believe God saved us from whatever vortex or ley line or something we drove through last night. Lastly, my husband and I acknowledge that we have both taken SSRIs in the past, but we would never harm ourselves or others. We love life. TLDR. We went through a stretch of rural Mississippi where time and space seemed to turn in on itself. Too many coincidences. Do you know anything about this part of the country and paranormal activity? I swear I could fly as a kid, and my sibling remembers it too. I know how this sounds, but I'm just going to say it exactly how I remember it. When I was around 8 to 9 years old, I used to literally fly. I'm 100% sure this wasn't a dream. I remember it way too clearly, and it didn't happen just once. It happened so many times that it felt normal back then. This took place in my grandparents' old house. The house itself was really old, like traditional wooden style, kind of worn down even back then. To get upstairs, you had to go through this dark hallway, and the stairs weren't even proper stairs. It was basically a steep wooden ladder, like something you'd see in old Asian homes. The whole place was always dark. I don't even remember there being proper lights. And my bedroom was upstairs. Every night, I was terrified to go up there. I always felt like something was behind me, like I was literally being chased. That fear felt so real that I'd panic and start running towards the stairs to get downstairs as soon as possible. Whenever I wanted to come back downstairs, I wouldn't climb down the ladder. I would run, genuinely thinking something was chasing me, and then I would just jump, like fully jump off from the top. But instead of falling, I would slowly float down. Not even fall, more like glide or levitate. I'd land safely every single time, super smoothly. It didn't just feel like floating, it felt like something was holding me. Like invisible, giant hands were lifting me and gently lowering me down. Not grabbing or hurting, but just supporting me and placing me safely on the ground. I never got injured, not even once. I never questioned it back then. I wouldn't even turn back to look at the ladder. I didn't stop and think, wait, I just flew. It just felt normal, like my brain didn't process how weird it was. This happened over and over again. Not once, not twice, this was just how I got downstairs. I kept this to myself for years because obviously it sounds insane. I thought maybe I was just imagining things or mixing it up with dreams. But about a year ago, my sister and I were talking about that house, how creepy and dark it used to be. And out of nowhere, we both brought this up. At the same time, we had never talked about this before. And we described the exact same experience. Running, feeling chased, jumping, and then slowly floating down safely. Even the feeling of being held or guided down. We both swore on our life we weren't lying, and it didn't feel like a dream to either of us. I don't know what to make of it. Maybe it was some kind of shared childhood hallucination? Adrenaline messing with memory? Or something else entirely? Edit. A lot of people were saying this sounds like an episode from Otherworld where someone had a similar experience as me. After seeing so many comments about it, I did check it out, and even I was kind of creeped out by how similar parts of it sounded. I just want to clarify that I genuinely didn't even know that this Otherworld thing existed before posting this. But this is my own first-hand experience. I didn't copy it from that episode or anywhere else. I've remembered this for years and only recently talked about it. Also, if so many people in the comments are describing really similar things, that kind of shows this isn't just one copied story. And there is a pattern to this flying thing, which makes this whole thing even more scary and confusing. Especially how many of us experienced it around stairs. The part that really got me was the siblings in that episode not talking about it, and then later realizing they both experienced the same thing. That's exactly what happened with me and my sister too, which is why it stuck with me so much. My creepy experience at the Biltmore Hotel in Los Angeles. I was in Los Angeles a couple of weeks ago for work. I really wanted to stay at the Biltmore Hotel because I'm really into history and architecture. Plus, as a movie nerd, a ton of films and music videos have been filmed there. The hotel is known to be haunted and is the last place the Black Dahlia was seen before her murder. I arrived around 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and while arriving in the room, I was on the phone with my mom. I was confused that this door in my room was slightly open. I was concerned at first, thinking it was an adjoining room door that was open. However, I saw it was a closet door and shut it while talking to my mom. It was a small closet, but super dark, and immediately gave me a bad vibe. I quickly decided to take a nap before dinner since I was exhausted by the long flight. It was early afternoon on a Wednesday in early April, and even though the hotel was empty, I hardly saw any other guests the whole stay. I heard thumping, weird crunching sounds, and other nosies that would wake me in and out of sleep. Additionally, I never have nightmares, just the occasional work stress dream. But I had these terrifying dreams that I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just once or twice in the dream, but it was constant while I was trying to talk to a friend of mine in the dream. The whole time, I was freezing in the hotel room. I had turned over and a gust of wind blew over me as I lifted the cover up. After my nap, I decided I needed to turn the air conditioner down as maybe the last guest set it for super cold. However, the air conditioner wasn't on at all. It was just freezing in my hotel room in LA, even though it was sunny outside. Also, the closet door was now slightly opened again. It must have opened by itself while I was napping, since I clearly remember closing it while talking on the phone with my mom earlier. I left the hotel for dinner and then explored the hotel a little bit when I came back. The other floors were similarly empty as I only ran into one other hotel guest. The windows on the upper floors were cracked open and you could look down into downtown LA. It was such a creepy feeling since it was so silent and the air just felt off. I slept that night with the lights on, which I've never done as an adult. I checked out super early at 6 a.m. and booked it out of there. I visited other haunted locations as a somewhat skeptic: Whaley House in San Diego, Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia, Waverly Hills Sanatorium in Louisville, Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum in Las Vegas. And besides Waverly Hills, none of the other locations gave me any haunted or heavy vibes at all, so I wouldn't say I'm sensitive to the paranormal.